Dogman followed my girlfriend home. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I had a Dogman sighting when I was with my girlfriend, and we were both pretty shaken up by it. We didn't figure out till over a week later that this Dogman had actually followed my girlfriend back to her parents' house and had been seen stalking around her place. Because we were forced to react to this situation, we made decisions we might never have made, or might not have made so soon anyway. You might say that she and I were forced to both grow up and grow closer because of this creepy, looming Dogman who seemed constantly to have his eyes on her in those days. Even though we did manage to escape, and we haven't seen him again in over 35 years now, I still get pretty shaken up every time I tell this story. We lived with a sense of dread brought on by that evil creature, and to this day, I don't even like driving at 55 miles per hour through the country. I would go so far as to say that I'm nervous taking high-speed rail through the country. I would prefer to remain on concrete city streets for every remaining moment of my life, because I don't think the Dogman likes concrete. And whatever the Dogman dislikes, that's what I like. A lot. So that I don't have to keep saying my girlfriend, who is now my wife, over and over, let's call her Whitney. At that time, people used to say she looked like Whitney Houston, so I'm going to go with that. If you don't know who Whitney Houston was, Google the 20th century, then come on back. I'll still be here. So one day Whitney and I went to Point Beach, intending to swim at the shoreline. We got so hot and so overheated on the way there that we felt like we'd walked into an oven on that beach on that day. So we wandered into the Point Beach State Forest just behind us and found a sort of wooden sidewalk in there. Following the path, we found some wooden benches that we collapsed on, and after some time in the shade provided by the tree cover, we began to enjoy the cool breeze and started to feel like ourselves again. Once we had drank some water and retreated from the brink of dehydration, we started to get frisky, and then we spent the day more or less necking and making out with each other. Some people walked by from time to time, but as the afternoon wore on, it seemed most of the action was out on the beach, and we seemed to be afforded a great deal of privacy. Later in the afternoon, Whitney started to complain that there was something in the bushes across from us. It only sounded like some small animal messing around in there to me, so I kept poo-pooing her complaints, or using her growing fear to have an excuse to hug her tighter. Finally, I heard some scuffling around in there that caused me to realize she was right. There really was something, or maybe someone, in those bushes. My gut feeling at the time was that it was some jerk watching us sitting there and kissing, so I got pretty angry. Rising to my feet, I called out to whomever was in those bushes to stand up and show themselves, or else get the heck out of there before I beat their face in. When there was no response, I grabbed a softball-sized rock out of the grass, raised it up to throw it, and issued my challenge again, even more angrily this time. At that point, Whitney nudged me and pointed to the bush at about the 3-foot level off the ground. There, peeking out at us, I saw what looked to me like the face of a dog. I burst out laughing. It was a pooch. We were scared of Fido the mongrel. I laughed hard at how silly we were being, but I noticed that Whitney was not laughing along with me. I saw her eyes continuing to stare, frightened, at that bush. Then I saw her eyes rise, and her expression deepen from fear to abject terror, an expression I had never seen on her face before. Turning around, I saw something moving upward, past that bush, which was quite disorienting and unexpected. I almost fell over backward. It was like someone twisted the world around and made gravity pull upward. When that upward movement stopped, I moved my eyes up and up and up until I found the head of that dog again. Only now, somehow it was way up in the air. Probably 10 feet up there. Or maybe even more. I felt like I was hallucinating or losing my mind because I couldn't see anything the canine might be climbing on to get his head up so high. There was no tree there, only a bush. Insanity had become normal, and the world had stopped making sense. But then that dog head moved forward, toward us, and I could see that even though the head looked canine, the body it was placed on top of was not. Have you ever seen that old movie where Ray Milland has his head grafted onto the shoulders of giant football player Rosie Greer? Well, I swear, my first thought was that someone had surgically transplanted a dog's head on top of the body of an upright gorilla. I'm going to try to remember every detail about the parts of the creature we could see, which was really only the top half or maybe the top 40%. It almost appeared as if the creature had no neck because of the way the dog head was embedded on those massive, hairy shoulders. Or maybe I should say the shoulders were fur-covered, as technically, fur can be considered slightly different from what we call hair. This was a coat of fur like a dog or a cat possesses. It was not a mangy bear, because I could see no patches of fur missing at all. The head had all the features of a dog, and looked even more like a dog than a dog does. What I mean to say is that this was like an exaggerated version of a canine. The ears were even taller than most dogs' ears. The snout was a tad longer as well. The teeth, mainly fangs from what I could see, were much longer. This was like a concentrated version of a dog. Do you follow what I mean? It's like they took all the most canine aspects of canines and then turned them up to 11. And yet, dogs don't have shoulders. And this one had broad and muscular ones. How could something be both more canine than canine, and yet semi-human at the same time? I was there staring at it, and even I can't answer that question. The chest of the creature was visible to me one time, and to my girlfriend on 3 occasions total, and we both agree that it was wide and looked far more human than canine. A human weightlifter's chest, but covered in thick dog fur. Explain that to me. When the creature looked directly at me, it had these off-white glowing eyes that it felt painful to look into. When it looked at Whitney or anywhere else, I saw eyes as black as deep space. They seemed completely dark to me, and maybe that's why the eye shine was so absolutely intense when it made eye contact. The pupils seemed completely dilated, in a way that human eyes can only become if you are using certain medications. To me, this was a nocturnal creature up before its bedtime, or maybe staying up late past its bedtime. Those eyes looked better equipped to see in the dark than to see in the day. I did get to sort of see the front paws, although I can't tell you if the creature possessed thumbs or not. He used the paws to move leaves out of his way during my brief sighting, and I did see parts of the short fingers and the very, very long claws. It gritted its massive teeth in such a way that I wondered if it could even close its lips around them. The teeth looked like they could take down the Incredible Hulk in 2 bites. and appeared far too large to even fit in that long snout. Yet to be honest, I didn't fear them as much as I feared those fish hook-like claws at the ends of those massively strong-looking, almost humanoid arms. It looked like it could easily slice or dice you and make human sushi out of you without even working up a sweat. And it was emerging from the forest to bring itself closer to myself and my future bride. This was an extremely upsetting and paralyzing moment where I admit I did not know what to do. I froze, and I watched, my jaw probably hanging open, as I was never so unpleasantly surprised by a turn of events in my entire life. The creature was almost out onto the wooden path in front of us when my girlfriend screamed, "Bloody murder!" The dog-headed monster reversed course and disappeared back into the foliage faster than it had emerged. We were both up running, but Whitney did not stop screaming for probably over a minute. She was screaming as she ran. People gathered around us when we got out of the forest, and yet neither of us were really able to describe why we were so upset. I think I eventually said that there was a mutated bear in the woods that scared us out of there, and people went ooh and ah. Nobody seemed to doubt us. They could see how rattled we were, and they all eyed that path through the woods as though Freddy Krueger were lurking in there. I drove Whitney back to her parents' place, and I got invited to stay for dinner. I stayed just to see that Whitney was all right. I was genuinely concerned about the level of upset that she was exhibiting. At the time, I was angry that we had been through that, and furious that I was helpless to make my girlfriend feel any better after that experience. I kind of felt that she'd been abused right in front of me, and so as a young man, I was unhappy on a few different levels about this entire experience. First of all, it didn't even make sense that there would be some kind of apex predator in those woods, as it just doesn't seem like a large enough area for even one creature like that to have enough food to eat, let alone a breeding population. It's just a little bit of woods and a beach at the edge of a fairly highly populated state. There should not have been any way for a species of unknown and unrecognized predators, larger than a grown man, to live in such a small patch of trees. Now don't get me wrong, there is a lot of natural beauty around that beach area. To the north is the Rahr Memorial School Forest, and to the south is the Point Beach Ridges State Natural Area. There's no separation between these wilderness preserves, and so it does join together to form a much larger area. Even so, we're only talking about 7 miles or so total from north to south, and far less than that east to west. You know, you can drive 7 miles in 10 minutes. It's not a very huge habitat for a predator to survive in. And I can't imagine it walking through suburbia to get there in the first place. I don't know of any underground passages leading to and from that beach, but maybe the Dogman does. I'm not sure how else to explain the way he seems to be able to show up and disappear at will from that location. I understand why some people wonder if he's interdimensional or supernatural. I really can't blame them for jumping to that conclusion. I am a hardened realist and materialist, though, and I refuse to accept those kinds of answers. To me, the Dogman is a big mystery. I don't know how he travels around. I don't understand his true motivations, and to be completely and brutally frank, I don't even comprehend what the creature really is. I don't understand how intelligent it is, or what kind of intelligence it possesses. I don't understand why it does the things it does, and most of all, I don't comprehend what its interest was in my girlfriend. Now, how do I know he had an interest in Whitney? Well, she saw him again near her home about a week later. Out of the kitchen window of that house, you look on some forested area that's just on the other side of the marsh and the nature preserve. Whitney said she was washing dishes and saw something moving outside. When she looked up, she claimed the dog was looking at her with glowing eyes as it peeked out from behind a tree in the same way that Sasquatch are supposed to do. This was definitely something canine, though. It had dog ears, and apes don't have dog ears. I can't speak to its legs because, to be honest, neither of us ever saw the bottom half of it. We saw it peeking out of bushes, and Whitney later saw it peeking from behind a tree, but we never ever saw the creature from head to toe. So, Whitney kinda collapsed internally, and it was an ugly thing to see. We all jumped to conclusions that she was having hallucinations about the Dogman. Seeing him in nature was one thing, but seeing him in your backyard 40 miles to the southwest was another thing entirely. Explain to me how a creature that large and that strange looking could have walked from one location to another. You can't. It would have taken an hour to drive that distance. I don't know how long it took the creature to walk it. And there's no way, I mean 0 way, that he could have gone from one place to the other without being seen and probably photographed multiple times along the way. It's just too wide open and too populated for him to have hidden his 10-foot form all along whatever route he took. And yet, we were all forced to accept that Whitney was really seeing the thing when her second sighting happened. That time, her brother was present, and he saw the same thing she saw. So, the Dogman really did somehow transport himself 40 miles from the beach to the marsh at the edge of our small town. I am at a loss to come up with a materialist explanation for how the Dogman accomplished that feat. It is a genuine, annoying mystery that continues to gnaw at me to this day. Now, my family and Whitney's both lived on the southwestern side of a little town called Kiel, Wisconsin. We were right near the Kiel Marsh State Wildlife Area, so I'm not going to act like there was no nature near us. But again, there was not enough nature around to support a predator the size of that Dogman. Another thing, and I believe this is important, is that there is no natural connecting passage between the marsh and that beach. If that Dogman really was the same exact one, and we all feel pretty certain that it was, then it must have either walked down streets in front of people's homes to get from one area to the other, or maybe it had an underground passageway unknown to humanity. I don't know how else it could have done it. Maybe it flew. Maybe it can become invisible. I can't think of a way that the animal man could have gotten from the beach to Kiel that doesn't strain credulity. Is he really able to become invisible? Is he really able to teleport? If not, why don't we get reports of Dogman hiking from one location to another? How exactly do they travel without being noticed? They seem to move through populated areas with ease. So how do they do that? My parents and Whitney's parents, too, both recognized the deeply disturbing nature of the creature's apparent obsession with my girlfriend, and they all began to pressure me to pop the question and move her the heck out of that area. We ended up getting married at City Hall, with our immediate families as witnesses. Then we were gifted with a lump sum of money to set out on our own and build a new life. We moved to Milwaukee and got an apartment in a side of town too densely populated for the Dogman to ever consider visiting. We've been able to raise one daughter and one son in Milwaukee, and neither of our kids have ever had to see that monster for themselves. We're confirmed city people for the most part now, and certainly Mom and Dad never go back into the woods. I don't even like to have grass under my feet anymore. It's been a lifetime since all these things went down, but I personally have never really recovered from the time that Dogman followed my girlfriend home. We're always happy to have him back. I'm talking about Sexy Kojak. Please join us in thanking today's executive producer, the one and only Sexy Kojak, for making this episode possible. Sexy is a $7 member, which means he gets lots of our perks, such as extra stories too wild for this channel, over a full day of archived secret stories, and occasional sneak previews of shows ahead of the public. In these strange times, YouTube has been throttling a number of us scary channels, and so our revenue has been drying up, even as inflation makes the dollar worth less each day. It's getting harder and harder to even keep this show going, so believe me, we appreciate and rely upon good people who can spare it to become channel members or PayPal Club members, or to give us one-time donations using our handy-dandy thanks button now under each of our videos. To explain more clearly, here's international TV spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman. Hank? Thanks, Biggie. And thanks to all of you for watching this far. If you liked it, please click like. If you'd like to see more of our work, please subscribe. And also click that bell icon if you'd like to be notified when we put out a new episode. To become an executive producer, you can donate to us through the thanks button under each of our videos, or through our paypal.me/PeterBernard209 page. To receive cool perks like secret uncensored Dogman episodes far too wild to ever run on this channel, you can become a YouTube channel member by clicking the join button, or join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. Joining either at the $3 a month level or above gets you access to our over 25 hours of secret uncensored Dogman stories available nowhere else. Do you have a scary story about Dogman or some other kind of high strangeness that happened to you? Let us know by emailing us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or by leaving us a voicemail message at 804-LA-SCARY. You may need to call back on that one. It cuts off after I think 3 minutes. And if you don't want to do any of that stuff, thank you for simply watching to the end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.